recording. Okay, so make sure that you download the PLC. There's so much on AP Insight. Where do I begin? And then go ahead and log into AP Insight. I'm assuming you all have logins, hopefully. If not, I think I may have a temporary login that I can give to you. Do me a favor, when you've logged in, please raise your hand. Let me know that you actually logged into the system. Okay. Great question, Brenda. If you look on the middle of the screen, right-hand side, it says Reading Materials. There's two things, AP Insight World History, where do I begin, and then AP Insight World History PLC 1 handout. Go ahead and double-click, or actually just highlight it, and on the bottom it should say Download Files, Upload Files. Okay, once you do that, you can actually download it, and you will have the materials. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Please go ahead and ask any questions that you have using the chat box on the right side of the screen. This is also a time for the share knowledge and questions about AP Insight in your classroom. So please don't think of me just as the expert here. If you have anything wonderful that you've been doing, just go ahead and type it in there and let us know. The PLC assumes that you've done two things: completed the challenge area roadmap and have the basic knowledge of the AP Insight platform. So what we're here to do is just facilitate and encourage participation and drive the conversation. But the truth is, it's actually more of a conversation between all of you than it is me telling you about the AP Insight program. Okay? Okay. So let's go ahead and get going. The goal of today's session is to help you all understand how to integrate AP Insight into your instruction and use the resources to address student misunderstandings in world history, AP World History. After today's training, you should be able to incorporate AP Insight and its resources more into your instruction, but also to engage colleagues online throughout the year. So one of the things that we definitely will encourage is for all of you to right now, I don't believe your mics are enabled to work, and part of it's actually my fault. Not only is it not enabled to work, but I cannot use the headset. I have to use a standalone microphone. So as a result, if we use the mics, we're going to end up with a possible issue where I won't be able to hear anything. I can, however, try if you want us to try to do it. Who has a microphone? Okay, so Brenda says she does. Okay, give me 1 second. You know what? Let's try it. I'll put in the headset, and then we'll see if we can. Okay, give me 1 second, okay? Okay, let's try this. Brenda, I'm going to enable your microphone. Okay, let's go ahead and see if you can actually say anything. Go ahead and try. Didn't hear anything? Go ahead and try it again.
How about now?
I heard something on the computer screen, yes.
Okay, so the trick is once it's enabled, you have to go to the top left in your own screen and allow it.
Okay, can everyone still hear me? Okay, so I can also, let's see, who said they had a microphone? Okay, Sarah says she will not be. Let me take a look. Daniel, did you want to use your microphone? Okay, I've enabled Daniel's microphone. Please make sure you mute your microphone. I'll try to do the same thing when I'm done talking to give you guys a chance. Daniel, yours is now activated, so go ahead and give it a shot.
Can you hear it now?
I could hear you, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, go ahead and mute your microphone, please, Daniel. And then when we have the chance, if there's anybody else who wants to use their microphone, let me know, and we'll go ahead and turn those on. Okay, so challenge area focus, anticipating student struggles. Really, the idea of AP Insight was to provide you with the opportunity of seeing challenge areas and then building blocks, and then using the resources that are there to be able to create essentially or use performance tasks and allow for you to check for understanding. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go over those challenge areas. We're going to go over how to understand student understanding. We're going to use the performance tasks, try to build check for understanding, and then we're going to do a Q&A at the end. Obviously, to be honest with you, we'll kind of do that ongoing throughout, and then the survey. At the end, there'll be a link so you can go and say wonderful things. So go ahead and let me know if you've started using the resources in your class, what kind of resources you've been using. Okay, it's an A, B, C, D. You know, are you incorporating AP Insight into your plans for next week? That kind of thing. Okay, and this you can probably just type in. Okay, a lot of people can't catch their breath. I understand that feeling. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, there's not as much we can do, but to tell you the truth, we may hear from some other people who maybe we can get some idea of how others are handling working with their districts so that AP Insight can be used as effectively as it needs to. Okay? Well, you know what? Let's dive right into an example then. This is actually an example, a sample exam question. And one of the things that AP Insight is designed to do is to help us be able to work our way backwards. So looking at this question, you see this question 3.1 to 3.3, and it refers to those particular charts or tables actually. And the idea is that if you look at the charts and you look at the questions, the idea here is for you to be able to start to think about, okay, what is it? And by the way, for those of you who do not know, you can actually make the screen bigger and smaller. You look at the very top, you see, I think it says sharing, then right next to it is a little box. It's like 4 arrows in the corners. If you click on that, it's a full screen. Okay? And I'll help you see this. The idea is that by looking at this kind of material, looking at exam questions, looking at sample questions, we can start to work our way backwards and think, okay, what is it that we're trying for the students to learn? So looking at this, and I'm going to mute the microphone, what are some of the things that these essentially two tables and the questions, yes, they are, okay, yeah, thank you, I forgot, they are actually in the handout. I'm not looking at the handout as why. I have it open, but it's off to the side. I actually am looking at the PowerPoint presentation itself. What is it that these actual questions are trying to measure? So when looking at this, what is it that we're thinking about for learning objectives? And don't cheat and look on the handout, okay? So let me mute the microphone. What do you guys think? Okay, so let's try that again. Can anyone hear me okay? Okay, so looking at these questions, maybe it's just taking a few moments. What is it that we're thinking about as sort of objectives that these questions are trying to get to? So if you're teaching this course, obviously, what is it that the questions 3.1, 3.2 is trying to focus on, and 3.3 trying to focus on? Okay, and for those of you who have microphones, you can speak. For the others, go ahead and you can type your answers in. So we do see actually CCOT type of thinking here. We're looking at use of evidence, argumentation, and yes, of course, John, for the first question, 3.1, it is very clearly this idea of networks of exchange. Okay? And then, of course, when we look at the second question, we're looking at not just networks of exchange, but what else? Compare and contrast. So the other thing is looking at it, you also think about different instruments, techniques. So the specifics of how this change and how the comparisons are in place. The key here is that AP Insights is designed for us to be able to look at these kinds of skills and thinking about, students being able to do argumentation, evidence, and of course the big question then is, how can you use AP Insight to assess and correct the student struggles with acquiring and applying skills? So those skills and those content areas, the comparison, the use of evidence, the argumentation, the CCOT stuff, what is it in AP Insight that we're able to use and use effectively to be able to help students gain those skills? So this fancy dancy chart is actually the strategic approach to the course mastery. And when you're looking at this, you're looking at theme 4, and it's contextualization and networks of exchange. So if you're looking at, this is essentially what those questions are asking you about, this particular type of theme. And we're looking at period 3. If we look at the actual time that they're looking at, the period that they're looking at in the questions. And the idea here is that using your course guide, the strategic plan that you've created, and in this case the one that is here, we can easily see which areas that we need to actually focus on in order to help our students be successful. Once identified, then, the AP Insight program is specifically designed with those challenge areas and building blocks for you to be able to go in and say, okay, where do I need to make sure that I'm focusing the efforts so that students have the right resources to go to? So we can see here the challenge area would be contextualization and networks of exchange. And the building block would be building block A. Analyze how the historical contexts, such as innovations in technology and economic practices, shape developments in post-classical long-distance trade networks. Okay? And of course, you see that our learning objectives are linked to that. How are we doing so far? Everything's making sense, right? Okay. Okay. The next part of this is the historical thinking skill, which for us is contextualization. As you're looking at the resources that AP Insight provides, Okay? You can then go, and once you've figured out where you find the challenge area, based upon that, sort of roadmap that you've created, you can actually use the topic translation. Oh, okay. Yeah, unfortunately, that's something I heard because I'm using a standalone microphone. So I'm unfortunately not sure there's anything I can do. But if you miss something, just let me know, okay, John? As I was saying, if you look at the topic translation, you can then work your way backwards. Okay? Yes and no. Actually, AP Insight can be used with the current curriculum because the reason why is the current curriculum actually isn't really changing. What's happening is they're going to add in some additional indicators, but the curriculum itself, what we're expected to teach, is supposed to remain fairly consistent. Because remember, we had a redesign a few years ago. Okay? There's not going to be another redesign. The exam is going to change. So what we're going to start to see is some differences in how the assessment on the AP exam is being done. And the AP Insight program is designed to be used for both. It really does gear students towards more short answers and more critical thinking questions, but it's not something that we have to ignore for the current exam administration. Because a student who can do a higher level of what's called depth of knowledge, Webb's idea of a student can think at a higher level, the lower levels are going to be easier for them. Where we run into trouble is when we ask a lot of lower level questions, memorization type things, which the DOK level would be like a level 1, is what Webb would say. Then the student is not going to be able to do the higher order thinking skills, which a lot of the writing will require. So the goal of AP Insight is to push students to think at that higher level, but then again, that's what the program has always been about. AP Insight is just another tool to help us get there. So we're looking at the topic translation. What we're really looking at is, okay, we're looking at contextualization, networks of exchange, and then the topic translation specifically says which building blocks. Building block A, period 3, you can see the actual associated topics. And to be honest with you, you could have easily have gone to this particular document and immediately upon looking at what the test questions are expected to test, be able to make a determination as to where the focus happens to lie. And what's nice is if you are creating your own assessments, you can start to code them so that you can actually link them to the different types of critical thinking skills, the historical thinking skills, and the actual curriculum. And of course, if you're using a released exam, the move has been to code those so it's easy for you to look at the topic translation and look at your roadmap and start to figure, okay, where you are in the process of making sure students are learning the content and the skills. And to be honest with you, for a lot of our students, it's that skill development that's going to catch them. Previously worked at a Title I school with an open enrollment policy with all AP classes. And what I discovered very early on is that students can learn history, but what they have a harder time with is conceptualizing it. For a lot of students, and even the most highly capable students, many of them were accustomed to a memorization process where they thought, well, I just have to memorize a bunch of facts and dates and I can definitely ace any test that you give me. And AP is not like that. They can have all the dates memorized and it will be irrelevant on the AP exam. So one of the things that we had to do was really push students to the higher order thinking skills, and a lot of it was application type questions and practice. Okay? And of course, we've kind of dribbled into this. How is it your students typically struggle with the challenge area? So looking at that building block, looking at the technological improvements and conceptualization, networks of exchange, well, what are some of the things you're seeing in your classrooms? Once again, if you want to use your microphone, I'll mute mine. You can talk. If you want to write, just kind of share a little bit of what some of the challenges that you're seeing as students are learning this content. And obviously, I would assume most of us haven't gotten to period 3 yet, but obviously, for those of you who've taught for a few years, in the past, what are some of the issues that you've seen with teaching this kind of a content area? are some very good points. There is that dual nature of challenge of looking at content, but also looking at the historical thinking skills. I'm going to say something. Chris, are you still here? Okay, it looks like he is. I'm going to say something. I hope I don't get in trouble. As you're looking at the content, please keep in mind that when you help a student learn to think, okay, that the content will be easier to teach and less significant. And what I mean by that is, obviously, we don't want students to leave our classrooms not knowing the material, but at the same time, the effort of the AP program, like any college class, is really to help teach students to think critically. So don't get bogged down in minutia and detail, and understand that as you're teaching students to think, that's going to make them better learners. And the better they are at learning, the faster you're able to teach the material and be able to also have them access it. This is actually the crux of the course, and to be honest with you, one of the most important, if not the most important thing that we do, but also the most challenging. Because when you have a student show up with a dearth of skills, it's very difficult to get them to the point to think critically. And part of it's also cognitive development. Lots of sophomores, for those of us who teach this as a sophomore class, will have difficulties doing that. But as we continue, we can get them to where they want to go. AP Insight is specifically designed to help give us some additional resources. So if you look at the next slide, there's a student progress sheet that you can actually access. So if you're on the AP Insight website, go to where it says Teach, that tab, go down and look at the student progress sheet, either one of them. And what you'll see is that it's allowing for students and encourage them to progress, to follow their own progression, to monitor how they're doing through this course, because that's part of that process for them to be able to become reflective learners. The more metacognitive they become, the more likely they are to be able to get through that content. This is the time of year where it's the most difficult to do. Okay? Did what I say make people feel better, worse, or was it no effect whatsoever on anybody? Okay. While we're waiting, I think since I haven't really engaged in that as much, it's harder to answer that question. Okay, and that is true. One of the things that I want you to see is not only the student progress sheet, but that once you can get students to start thinking more metacognitively, if you go to the Assess tab, you actually have the opportunity of being able to assign some building block quizzes. And what's nice about this is that it allows students to be able to get immediate feedback on how well they're doing on the actual thinking skills. So you see here, if you were to select a building block, there's in period 3 contextualization and post-classical trade, you can assign that building block a quiz, and as you're going through this process, you can start to see some of the most common misunderstandings for students. And these aren't really terribly long. You know, the idea sometimes we get caught up thinking they have to be able to have, you know, a 28 question or 50 question test or quiz, and for a lot of these building blocks, it's just a few questions just to get to the heart of whether or not they understand this skill, and then the next step is to help them with that translation process. And that's actually the more difficult task, because what you can do is very easily have them go, take these quizzes, do them from home, do them in a computer lab, and then in class, that's where that teaching process comes in, where you start to say, okay, you did this, we're going to now look at how you rationalize and thought through the process. We'll talk about it in small groups, as a group, peers, all the different mechanisms that we use, methods that we use for teaching. And then we can continue to use the resources from AP Insight, the materials that are available to us, okay? And then from there, say, okay, now can we take that and transition that to another type of content area? Because the thinking skill is the same. And that's where a lot of students get sort of confused. And so we scaffold that to another content area. Right. And to some extent, I can understand that. Unfortunately, one of the things that we do see a lot of times, Daniel, in education is being able to use these new materials while we're teaching. Now, here's what I would recommend. As we're going through this, you're not going to use the AP Insight for every single thing. Unfortunately, a lot of us aren't going to have this kind of a time. But what you may be able to do then is look at some of the pre-test stuff that you've done and look and see, okay, what are some of the most important or pressing thinking skills? And in fact, the next question that we have here, think about this. What do students need to know and be able to do? Especially for skills, okay? And then the student struggles incorporated in this building block quiz. If you look at that particular quiz, obviously you can answer this question, but think about them for your course. What are some of the things skill-wise that your students struggle with? We had just talked about it. And of that, what is the most important things you really, really need to focus on throughout the year? And it doesn't have to be something you focus throughout the entire year. It could be like, well, my first thinking skills that I really try to hit hard are the following. Once you've determined that, then the next step is to go back and look at what content area did that fit into. So looking at the topic translation and saying, okay, what period and what content areas and what are the themes that fits into, and then are there some resources in AP Insight I can use? Identify certain specific building block quizzes, certain specific challenge areas, knowing you're not going to use every single thing that's there, but you may use one or two in a given unit. Okay? Does that make some sense? Is that a little bit helpful for you, Daniel? And while we're waiting for responses, this is actually what building block quiz, that question 3 refers to. So based upon the example that we saw earlier from the exam, and as we thought about what topic translation it is, this is what the building block quiz would look like. When we identify this building block quiz, we're looking at what skills is this building block quiz designed to help students learn and be able to do, and what content areas. That will help then drive our teaching. It will also help drive what kind of resources we need to use. So we may find that those building block quizzes end up being a very important part of how we work with our students, because it gives us a lot of immediate feedback on how the students are doing on some of these historical thinking skills. And I agree, Sarah, and that's basically the sort of crux of what I've been saying is, and I know this, as I said, I've been teaching for a number of years. My first year teaching, I had a friend of mine, and she decided that she was going to go and teach Latin full-time. She taught social studies in Latin. She left all her materials for me. Now, for a first-year teacher to open up a closet full of materials, you would think this is the greatest experience known to man. I felt like it was Christmas in July. And then it settled in that, oh my goodness, this is so incredibly overwhelming. I was not and would not be able to use all of this material ever in my entire life. And even going through it would have been a full-time job in and of itself. So what I had to really do was to start just thumbing through and trying to figure out and talking with her what are some of the most effective things that we had in there. What are some resources that she said really were the best, and looking at some of the names of things and then thinking, okay, what are my weaknesses, what are my students' weaknesses, and pulling out just specific books that I would use, just specific sort of resources. And then taking that time to go through those particular resources. Essentially, that's what AP Insight can be like when you're doing this while you're teaching. Is you're not going to be able to use all of it necessarily, but you can use at least a portion of it and just be judicious based upon your specific needs and the needs of your students. That a huge gap, 270 to 135. You know, the only other thing I can say is as we start to delve into using AP Insight more, this can be, it should be ultimately a time saver. It puts some of the stuff in the hands of students, some of these building block quizzes, but more importantly, it also should help us be able to see, okay, where our students need the most help. You know, as we continue to go along, we should hopefully be able to see that students may need less help on some of these building block sort of concepts and quizzes, and as a result, be able to sort of fine tune what we're doing with our with our classes. I know it's tough, but I do know that as you continue to use this process, and I know I used it at the end of last year as we got ready, we were doing a pilot, and I used it with my AP classes as we got ready for the AP exam. And I think the biggest thing is, the biggest thing was that my students found it very productive. A lot of them wanted me to use it earlier, but we didn't have access to it earlier. But more importantly, the students found that it was very helpful for them because I was able to sort of pull out the things and start to fine-tune where it is they needed the most help. Obviously, we're hoping this can be used and it needs to be used as we go through the process, but we also realize we have to start with baby steps and use it as it makes sense for each individual teacher and each individual class. So, very quickly, let's take a look at this question here, the building block quiz question, and let's think to ourselves, what are some of the things that students have to be able to know and do? So looking at the questions, the content and skills, okay? And what kind of struggle is automatically built into this particular question, okay? So you see a map, and then it says, using the map, answer A, B, and C. So once again, we're looking at content and skills, and what kind of struggles we see built into question 3, which is displayed on the screen right now. Advancing in maritime technology, Eastern technology to the Western world, knowing about the advances in maritime tech, okay. Now looking at those maritime technological advances, what does it seem that these questions are centered around though? Right. Okay, good. They need to talk about cause and effect. They need to talk about the time period. They need to know some of the words, transportation technology, commercial practices, causation. Good. And here's the other key, is not only do they need to know the vocabulary, obviously, but they also need to know about those practices. So when we look at this, we're looking really at the same skills we looked at when we looked at the practice questions earlier, and we started looking at our topic translation. This question really is designed to help with those economics for 11 and 12, and then that contextualization, right? And this is why these uh, building block quizzes become important. This is specifically tied to a skill that students need to be able to do for the actual exam and for the course itself. So as students are doing this, one of the things that we'll get is we'll get essentially charts like this, which will help to show exactly where the students are in their level of understanding. Okay, and I don't want to spend too much time on the data here, but then what that allows us to do is to then go ahead and teach those skills using, and this resource is available through AP Insight as well. And if you look at the select the building block, this next slide, you see that there's actually success criteria on the left with misunderstandings on the right. And what we can start to see is, based on how students are doing, where are their misunderstandings? And of course, ultimately, it gives us the ability to assign a challenge area assessment. And a challenge area is at a bigger level. It's saying what we really want is for students to be able to know and do those skills. And this is an example. And we've actually tried to eliminate some of the misunderstandings that a student will have or inabilities because they just haven't been able to work on those historical thinking skills by using the building block quizzes. So as I mentioned earlier, you may not use every building block quiz, but you may find that there's certain ones that your students struggle on certain types of things. And if this is something that students struggle on, I know economics is always difficult for a lot of students because, as somebody mentioned earlier, they don't have a lot of economics knowledge. Depends on where you are. So one person is from Georgia. I know there are some places in Georgia we do economics every single year. I used to work in Gwinnett County. But there are some places where economics is only really in high school. And the student gets to you and they don't really know a lot of these skills. They really don't know a lot of this content. So using the building block quiz can help us sort of identify those misunderstandings, make those adjustments in our instruction, and then we can either give our own or we can use a challenge area quiz. Okay? And you can see the example that's here. Okay? The other thing that's really nice is if you go to the ACT section, after the building block quiz, there's actually a how can I actually improve understanding? You can click and you see there's a next steps guide. Okay? And the idea for that next steps guide is it allows for us to be able to figure out what are the resources available through AP Insight. And then of course we have resources that are available. And then, of course, things that we can pull and use, because once we identify where the students are having the most difficulties, and we can identify that with that building block quiz. So we're looking at our students, we're knowing that they're going to struggle, we maybe see some indications in class, we pull the building block quiz, give it to them, get a sense as to how they really do understand or not understand the content. Now we can either create materials, find materials, there's a lot of different things that are out there for us. And the other thing is going back to AP Insight and say, okay, let me pull some of the building block materials so I can make sure that I am getting the students prepared and being able to help them and me analyze the misunderstandings, putting them in groups, assigning certain individual work for students. And then, of course, the next part of that is when we look at the challenge area assessment. So we're looking at that bigger level using the materials that the challenge area has available to you, so you can actually say, okay, how do I actually teach the challenge area? Okay, and one of the examples here is a performance task. Okay, so the performance tasks are designed to allow students to be able to practice these skills. And once again, you can use one, you can use both, you can use them to whatever is the most effective for your classrooms and for the needs of your particular students. The nice thing about AP Insight is it helps determine those needs because it actually has built in the ability for you to assign some of those building block quizzes, figure out where the students are having the most difficulties, and then work your way backwards. So thinking about that, what are some of the areas? I know some of you have been looking hopefully through AP Insight as I've been talking. Some of you may see or may have your topic translation. What are some areas in the course where students seem to struggle? They seem to have a lot of difficulties. Before we move on to some additional things with the PowerPoint itself, the presentation itself, what are some of the areas where your students are struggling and have struggled in the past? And thinking about find, what kind of resources that would be good for you to have. I understand the struggle. What I'm talking about is the thinking skills. When you look at your historical thinking skills and content, where do you find the most difficulties, Daniel? What is it that students seem to struggle with, say, first semester? So with the vocabulary difficulty and the reading difficulty, what is it that we've been doing? And that is a good point. Causation, correlation, that's a very difficult thing for students to be able to distinguish. Okay, reading complex texts. Okay, so I'm looking at things like causation, correlation. As I'm looking at the topic translation, I've pulled it up in the meantime. Okay, one of the things that you'll see when you look at the topic translation is, for instance, the first unit, causation, the environment, and humans. One of the things that's nice, and then this contextualization, environment and demography. There are essentially building block quizzes for period 2 and period 3, building block A, building block B, that are specifically designed to talk about contextualization. And here's what's nice. Content-wise, obviously they may not know anything about any of this content, but that contextualization piece is there. It's part of the building block quiz, building block A for period 2. Okay? And the associated topics are things like the expansion of economic and military activity, the difficulty in managing defending frontier areas of empires, the unique geography influencing trade routes of the Indian Ocean, the Silk Roads, the Mediterranean trade routes, spread of pathogens. And so the key here is to use some of that to help. And I understand the difficulties with reading. They're going to still struggle with stuff that's in AP Insight, but because they are shorter, and a lot of it's based on writing, one of the things you may also find is the more they write, the better they're going to get at, especially as we practice using the vocabulary. I know that was always a hard thing for my students, is to scaffold them to use that vocabulary. So write the piece, and then go back in and say, okay, where can we then start using some of the words that we're using in class so we can actually become more succinct in how we're explaining things and actually really show that we have mastered some of that vocabulary. It's not easy. And to be honest, I wish I had a #1 answer that would help all students learn to be better readers, but the truth is there is none. Nothing that is an easy fix. It's one of those things you just kind of continuously work on that literacy piece. And hopefully you get support from other people in the school, language arts department, some of the other departments, the science department. I mean, if kids are doing literacy, then literacy will go up. And that really requires a school effort a lot of times. Now, for contextualization, same kind of thing. Looking at, for instance, the first challenge area, causation in the environment, what's nice is that you move down, there's, I just mentioned contextualization, causation, looking at things like period 3. The environment causes and effects from 600 to 1450. Once again, the idea here is that you can actually use those building blocks and start to get a better sense as to how the students are doing. And what's nice is that the way AP Insight is structured, you're actually measuring the students' content and skill development. So once again, I'm not, once saying that you're going to use every one of these, but you may find that at different points of the year, you're going to use some more than others, and certain ones that, for you make the most sense to be able to sort of hammer home certain content area, but especially hammer home certain thinking skills. Okay. So now looking at the performance, does that make sense, by the way, to everybody? Can you guys give me like a check mark for agree or an X for disagree? If you go up to where there's that little hand, you'll see there's also an agree, disagree. I just want to see how everyone's doing. Yes, it's fine too. I just want to make sure everybody is feeling comfortable. Okay. Okay, Daniel. What I was saying is, as you start to look at the topic translation, and it sounds like for a lot of us that's going to be a great place to start. Look at the areas where you know students are struggling. People have mentioned things like causation, contextualization. Find some of those building block quizzes. What's nice about the topic translation is that as you go through, it pretty much clearly lays out which building block quizzes match and which periods, so that you can actually give one of those quizzes, get a sense as to how students are doing, and then you can get resources from AP Insight, but also resources to be able to know how to tailor your teaching. And then as you move forward, you can actually start using those challenge area quizzes, and then of course the performance tasks. If we look at the performance tasks that we have here, it measures a lot of those kinds of skills that we're looking for students to be able to do when it comes to contextualization. Okay? And it does it with the post-classical traits. So you're looking at okay. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I hope it's Delena is how you pronounce your name. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. But Daniel, the idea is that using those resources and being able to sort of pull the information that AP Insight happens to offer. And here's the thing. If you're comfortable with the things that are going on in the class, a lot of this may just be, as I said, using some of those quizzes to sort of diagnose and then be able to tailor. And then only in the case where there's something where you say, you know what, I really see a big problem with this particular type of skill, pulling some of those resources out from the AP Insight program. Okay? The next thing, of course, is to brainstorm. So when you're thinking about this building block, you're thinking about this idea of contextualization, and you're looking at specifically post-classical trade. Does anybody actually have certain lessons, anything that seems to jump out as something you've done in the past that would work? And the performance task that we just looked at, does it seem like the kind of thing that we could do in the class? And not just this one, there's other ones as well. The key is just trying to figure out, based upon whether students are struggling with certain thinking skills, which types of building blocks and which types of challenge areas we want to focus on, and maybe picking some of the big ones first semester and some of the big ones second semester, that we could actually use something like this performance task. So go ahead. Once again, I'll mute the microphone. You can type, you can talk. Just let me know, how does this seem like it could be useful, and let's be practical with it. So, is this something you are going to use, and if not, what is it that may be missing? Those sound like some great ideas. Okay. I actually like the idea of assigning the tasks and having the 4 AP World History teachers in the district work together. And yes, a lot of this can be done with students independently. I would want to point out that these tasks are designed to be formative in nature, the performance, the building block quizzes especially. And so what's nice about that is that for the students, it should give them a chance to really be able to do their best, realizing that it's a low stakes type of environment. And really designed for us to be able to sort of track and see how they're growing in this process. Okay, good. So, what have we learned in this PLC that informs how you can more effectively use AP Insight with your students? And I do understand it's a little bit different than the intended plan because a lot of us haven't been using AP Insight, but I'm hoping that this has been productive as you think about and reflect what are some of the things that you're taking away. I know we've done a little bit of that right now, but is there anything specific that you have learned that will help you be able to use it more effectively? That's good. I'm happy to hear that, Brenda. Um, and in a moment, I'm actually going to show you one more thing that will also help. I know that time is an issue, and there is one extra thing that will help out with some of that time. Yes. From my understanding, yes, what you should be able to do is when you have all the site license stuff done, and at the end there'll actually be, there should be, I believe, a slide of a contact that you'll be able to actually assign it, and there'll be information on the students when they take the quiz. So you'll have information that yes, they've taken it and how well they did on it and everything else. I'm not gonna lie to you, that entire process, I can't tell you at this moment because I don't know it. And a lot of people actually are still in the process of learning that because a lot of us have been using it and have been using it as users ourselves, not fully with class. Okay? So, from my understanding, no. To get this set up, the impression I've received is that it's actually not very time consuming. And once it's set up, once it's all done, it's there and you can use it for the entire year. So you'll have some investment on the front end, but yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know all the details for getting the information into the system. I do know that I've dealt with different learning management systems and different things like this. In the long run, it ends up being a benefit, but I do understand that in the short term, it is a pain in the butt. But at the end, as I said, it's the kind of thing that you can contact College Board. Yes, there's an AP Inside email, and I would ask them and see what's the most effective way to be able to get those rosters set up. 125 students, yeah. Okay. So they did it with a spreadsheet. Yeah, see, for me, I had not done a spreadsheet yet for anybody. So, okay, so it looks like they were able to do a syncing system. Thank you for sharing that, Brenda. And I'll still be able to give you the email. Okay, and just to answer your question, the availability of the performance test. If you look under the challenge area sections, you'll see that you'll find the performance task is under the act, and then the performance tasks is under um, the challenge area materials, and that's where you'll see those performance tasks that you can then use in order to help students learn the skills of performance task. Okay? Oh, goodness. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you, yeah, that's 103 by hand. Um, yeah, I know how it is. I've had to do that with Excel spreadsheets, typing in all the student names in order to keep track of data. Okay, so the next thing is showing what works. If you didn't ask a question, or to be honest with you, you're looking for the ability to work with people, okay, then there is an actual section, Show What Works, on the AP Insight. I highly encourage that you use it. I also highly encourage that you're sharing this information if you're part of like the Facebook page or part of the AP list that used to be called the listserv, but there's a new name for it now, where you can exchange ideas and work with others, because that's the other thing that's going to help us out tremendously. Not a single one of us is going to necessarily go through all of AP Insight, but if you use a particular challenge area quiz, or you use a particular building block quiz, or a particular performance task, and say, you know what, this really did a great job for this particular skill, put that out there. Say, listen, those of you who are on AP Insight, here's something that I've done, and obviously you can do it through AP Insight with the Show What Works. You can say, here's what I've done, or ask that question. Hey, has anybody figured out what's a good way to deal with this, or which performance task will help, or where can I find this? Is there something out there? And there's other AP teachers who may have come across that and say, you know what, I use this performance task for this particular challenge area, and you know what, my students did much, much better when we did the assessments, and I was able to do a pre and post test and see, you know what, the growth was amazing. Okay? Okay. Before you leave, because I had another person, please go ahead and take the survey. I've displayed it. I'm also going to, let me see if I can do this. Pop it in here, because I did this last time. People found it easier to click on that. Click on the survey. And then if you need any questions, I like the question that was asked about how to get this all uploaded and prepared. This is actually the best email, the contact for AP Insight. Okay, and I will be around for, it says, the next 5 minutes. If any of you have any questions or anything like that, when you're done with the survey, you're free to go. If you ever need to reach me, I'll give you my email address here in the little box. Feel free just to send me an email. I said this last time, I'm more than happy to share anything I happen to have or help anybody out. And I'm in Georgia. As I mentioned, I used to work in Gwinnett County, and I work in Fayette County, and I'm more than happy to do anything I can to help anybody. Okay? So this is the contact information, and then the survey monkey. If you could fill that out, please. Hopefully this was productive for people. As I said, it's my first PLC, and obviously Joe's first PLC, and hopefully that everyone got something out of it and can feel a little more comfortable and feel a little bit more like they can get something good out of AP Insight. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Sarah, for attending. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for sharing. Okay. And also thank you, John. Seeing there's a Lil Garrett who's been here. I've noticed the name. Thank you for being here. It's okay, Daniel. To be honest with you, I know this is also a new initiative, so for me, my biggest concern was how much sharing we were able to do. But I think if people got something out of it, then it's been a success. And hopefully, as I said, people were able to get at least a good sort of head start on some ways to use this program effectively and not be overwhelmed or, be wasting time or looking for trying to get things done. I know we have a lot of important things that have to be accomplished in the new school year, so.